Good day everyone. Ako lang i-record akong discussion since I'm not around. So please listen because I'm not sure if Carmela will put subtitles. Pero nasad mo yung ma-answer some quiz. So anyways, let's proceed. Let's start with moral conscience. The Catechism of the Catholic Church affirms and enlightens us on the nature and meaning of conscience on the following points. So 7 points in total. So let's start with number 1. Deep within the heart of a person, a law is inscribed by God, and its voice is ever calling him or her to do good and avoid evil. So mara siya innate bitaw na moral law kanang gicarve na sa Ginoo sa atong heart since birth. Now we're deep within sa ato agkakonsensyahan ta na dili mo tabang bitaw. So maka-feel tag natural na inclination to help others. For example, naay natumba, ato silang patindugon rather than laughing at them. Because makonsensyahan man ta na di matabang na nanay natumba. So like, natural na sa ato bitaw na magbuhat og maayo. So number 2, at the right moment, moral conscience instructs the person to do good and avoid evil, judges particular choices by approving those that are good and objecting against those that are evil, stands as the witness to the authority of the truth, of the supreme good to which all people are drawn, and makes them open to receive the commandments. So, ang role of moral conscience. So, moral conscience serves as a guide sa atua, instructing individuals to make choices aligned with godliness rather than bad things. So, ang example na is like, you see your classmate cheating with someone. Unsa may yung buhaton? Remain silent, kay lahat man siya na kinabuhi. No. What number 2 is trying to say is, dapat imo siyang i-correct sa iyahang mistakes. Because kabalo na ta na mali iyang gibuhat, nag-cheat na siya, masakitan ng other party. But yet, you're being silent. Mukonsensyahan gid ka no, kay kabalo man ka na masakitan ang pikas, masakitan ang gichitan. So mo na siya ang number 2, imong badlungon ang imuhang companion or ang person na nasayo for the better. So, number 3, judgment of reason. Conscience is a judgment of reason, whereby the person recognizes the moral quality of the concrete action he or she will do, is doing, or has done. And when it judges his or her action, he or she perceives and recognizes the command of the law. So, ang example na ni kay, pagpamakak mo, kung mamakak ko, basin makakwarta ko, nakatry na ba mo na, lagsa ko, diara ako sa pantalan, pagkauman, nilagput ako dito sa, maski nga sa asa. Then, after some time, makareflect bitaw ko, kaya ko nahala, akong pangangit, pantalan, rabang, niabot man ko dani. Inana, bitaw, kanang, makonsensyahan ka ba na ma-recognize ni mo yung sayop? So, mo na ang gitry point out sa number 3. Mo na siyang judgment of reason. Atong judgment sa atong gibuhat. So, number 4. Sufficient self-awareness is necessary in order to hear and follow the voice of conscience. The need for interiority, any reflection, self-examination, or self-analysis is crucial as life events within and around us tend to distract us from this. So, self-awareness and reflection. Sufficient self-awareness is essential to heed the voice of conscience. So, mo na ang ato ang pag-self-examine sa ato ang kaugalingon. Kay, for example, na kay nabuhat mali. Hala, i-examine dapat ni mong self. Kaya ano ako man itong nabuhat na. Kabalo man ko na dito maayo. So, dapat mag-examine gid ka sa imong kaugalingon everyday. Masking wagid kay nabuhat, i-examine na gid permib kung align pa ba ka sa godly na path. Kay ngano man, wala na, delikado na kay ni kung wala kay examination sa imong kaugalingon. Kay natakabantay na nakasadalan sa yawa. Tapos kung makabuhat kag di maayo, di na ka makonsensyahan. That's why we need self-awareness and reflection sa ato ang nangabuhat. more siya connected sa number 3 bitaw, where imuhang own judgment sa imuhang self na ma-realize nimo imuhang sayop. Except dani kailangan nato na aware ta sa ato ang ipang buhat, atong i-examine ano ato man tong nabuhat no. Kaya ano man, para ma-improve nato ang ato ang life. Ato ma-redirect ang atong life into godliness. Ambot mo ba ng sorry, mo na sorry. Jack to sorry no. Sige, joke lang. Pero number 5. Human dignity entails and requires the uprightness of moral conscience, which includes number 1, awareness of moral principles and application of these principles is the given situation by practically scrutinizing reasons and good. And finally, prudent judgment about concrete acts yet to be done or already done. So, human dignity and moral conscience. Human dignity requires moral uprightness, which involves awareness of moral principles, their practical applications in various situations, and prudent judgment about action. So, for example, ay healthcare na professional na nag-refuse og participate sa medical procedure kay against sa moral beliefs such as performing abortion. Sorry sa mga pro-abortion, pero biblically it's still murder. Anyways, murag inana bitaw mga healthcare, mga doctors na mag-refuse og buhat or mag-participate in abortion because they know that biblically it's wrong. It goes against their moral beliefs. So mo na siya ang number 5. So number 6, the just judgment of conscience makes a person answer to the responsibility of his or her own action by, in the case of committing evil, remaining as the witness to the universal truth of the good, as the evil or his or her particular choice, and as pledge of hope and mercy. That is, in admitting the fault committed, he or she has to ask forgiveness, still has to practice goodness, and cultivate virtue with the grace of God. So, it's about how we should be responsible sa ato ang gipang buhat and how we are accountable for that. So, conscience entails responsibility for one's action. So, after nato ma-realize bitaw na wrong ang atong gibuhat, makonsensya ba kita, di ba? So, kay nakonsensya naman ta, if others do it, ato din stop. So, after realizing that they have wronged a friend by spreading gossip, mag-take og responsibility sa actions. For example, lagi ka to gossip. For example, nang libak ka, naibala na namang libak ka, you're accountable for your actions. Mao nang unsa yung buhaton. Kay nasakpan man ka na ng libak. Nasakpan man ko na ng libak. Unsa gito akong gibuhat ni Cracklings. Nag-chat. Nag-sorry ko ni Cracklings. Gigan ako si Cracklings, nagilibak na ako siya. So, man ang example sa number 6. Kita ang responsible sa atong sala. And we are accountable for that. So, number 7. A person has the right to act according to his or her conscience and is in freedom in order to make a moral decision, because there can never be moral accountability when a person lacks knowledge of the act being done or is forced against his or her will. So, natay ginatawag na ang freedom of conscience. So, individuals have the right to act according to their conscience and make moral decisions freely. So, a person decides not to attend a social event na ginagamit ang mga illegal substances. Pero masking gi-pressure na siya sa amigo na mag-appeal na ali. Dili. Wa siya nagpadala sa pressure, wa siya nagpadala sa mga invitation sa iyang mga friends because na siya freedom to choose what is right. Kaya makonsensya ba kita na di ba Jen Clyde? Makakonsensya, di ba? Ambot ko if nabaka karon or anything. Basta, di ba? Makonsensya man ta. Mao nang number 7. The freedom of conscience. Oh, a person has the right to act according to his or her conscience. Because if magana ta, nakabalutan na mali. Unsa man? Makonsensya ba kita, di ba? Because awat sa gingon sa number 1 na naatay natay law nag-inscribe by God deep within the heart of a person. So, sa number 1 pa lang, giingon na naging conscience atong heart. Mo nang, if magkonsensyaan gid ka. Because we know that it's the wrong thing to do. So, humanata sa moral conscience. So, nahumanata sa moral conscience, let's proceed to conscience. Conscience lang. So, the Catechism for Filipino Catholics clarifies the concept of moral conscience on the following points. Number 1, for most Filipinos, conscience is understood as the tinig ng budhi that guides us in our moral life. Our basic tendency towards the good and the voice calling us to do good and avoid evil. Yet, more concretely, it refers to applying objective moral norms to our particular acts, and obeying it is our very dignity because we will be judged according to it. So for example, there's like this very, very poor father. Nagiigan siyang boss na mamakak. Pero, naput siya sa difficult na situation. Gingan siya na mamakak na walay gibuhat ang boss na mali. Para ang ngalan sa boss, mentsakto. So, boss telling the very poor father to lie about para ma-okay ang image sa boss. Dayon, conscience. So, kani ang very poor father na nagdako as a Christian ang kabalo na ang gisugo sa boss kay mali. Iyahang gibuhat, wa siya na makak. Despite being put in a very hard situation or a dilemma. Kaya nga naman, if he tells the truth, he's very poor, kailangan niyang trabaho, pwede siya i-fire sa boss. Pero if he tells the truth, wala siya konsensya. Kaya nga naman, di ba siya makonsensyahan because he said the truth and what he said was good. He is in the path of righteousness. So, maskin pag-iigna na siya na i-falsify ang gibuhat sa boss, he still chose to do good. Mao nang ginaingon sa number 1. So let's proceed to number 2. Here then arises a common misunderstanding. How can we be free when we are bound to follow the dictates of conscience? This is a misconception that comes from the wrong notion of freedom, which is doing what I want. And only the liberating grace of God can help us against the built-in tendency toward self-centered use of freedom, a very deep effect of original sin. So, unsa kay ang original sin? Ang sala na na-implant sa atwa. Kaya nga naman, gingon sa John na anak ta sa yawa. Kaya anak mo ta sa yawa, natay sala. So, for example, a person believes that freedom entails unrestricted indulgence in pleasure without considering ethical implications. Kanang nag-believe ang tao na okay ra magkuan-kuan, pero kay gingon man sa Bible na para na sa minyo, wa niya gi-abuse ang freedom bitaw na magkuan-kuan. But instead, yang gi-follow ang Bible. Kay it's wrong biblically na magbuhat ka og actions that were made for the married na dili pa kakasal. So mo nang number 2. Awa gayo, doing what I want. Mas gipili nimo na dili magkuan-kuan because mo may gibutang sa Bible. Makonsensyahan ka na magkuan-kuan ka na di pa kami nyo. Much more na minors pa mo. Nagakuan-kuan na mo. Di ba kuan? Hey, basta. Mo nang number 2. Doing what I want is a common misconception. Taga naman tag freedom sa Ginoo. Pwede na ka magbuhat sa masking unsa. No. We are given freedom to do what is right. So number 3. The truth is that the freedom of conscience carries with it a corresponding obligation to respect the same freedom in others. This obligation, which does not really prevent us to be free, pertains only to our free thoughts, words, and deeds that guide us to genuine freedom. Taking ourselves away from genuine freedom, we destroy ourselves in selfish use of freedom. So, example na ni kay in a diverse society, individuals hold varying beliefs and values. Despite personal convictions, respecting others' freedom entails refraining from imposing one's belief forcefully. So, example, sorry kayo, aniha, for example, Catholic ka, and Baptist ka. Kaning Catholic, naging ano di man mo pangagos, pag pangagos na kay, respect man na sa death sa Ginoo. Nang Baptist kay, dili man gyud siya. Because like, ang sign of the cross, di ba kay, para na, action na para sa Catholics. So like, if you force another person with different beliefs to do something that you believe in, that's wrong. That's wrong. It's wrong to impose one's belief forcefully. So let's refrain from that. So, for instance, example, a person may disagree with a political opinion but recognizes and respects the right of others to hold differing views without coercion or infringement on their liberties. So, for example, katong about politics, believe ka na kani siya mas makatabang sa country, mo nang kanigid siya yung butaron, pero believe mo na di may anak niya kay mas makatabang niya siya. Don't force your views sa ilaha. Kaya nga naman, ilaha man na. Don't force them. Respect their views. So, mana siyang number 3. So guys, addition na tong number 2 about the sign of the cross. So, appeal dito ang invocation of the Trinity, remembrance of Christ's sacrifice, expression of faith, protection and blessing, initiation of prayer, sacramental action, tradition, and custom. So, sorry kayo ha, I just use those para as an example na dapat dili force, pero I'm not trying to say na ga-force mo sa others. Because isa mo sa mga respectful kayo na religions. Because sa akong nabantayan, bitaw, daghan naman kayo kung mga posts na nakita sa SOCMED. And usually, bitaw, ang mga pari, gawali sila about how we should respect other religion, how we should not, their views, how we should not judge their views. Whereas, daghan sad ko nakita na mga preachers na ginadisrespect ang Catholic. Katong awat atong nagiguna panggang-sen lagi daw ni. No, it's not. Inyuha man ang invocation of the Trinity, remembrance of Christ's sacrifice, and etc. So, I'm so sorry if na-offended ato na line. So, let's proceed sa next topic. So, broadening of horizons. Have you ever experienced difficulty in sleeping because you knew you did something wrong? Have you ever gone through an incident wherein you found it hard to be at peace in heart and mind because you recognize that you have hurt someone terribly? What is it in all of us that makes us feel that way? The tradition of believing in the existence of conscience in every person and its importance in the whole belief system of Christian morality goes back to sacred scriptures themselves, especially in the letters of St. Paul. So, si St. Paul, siya ang pinakadaghan na sulat sa New Testament. I think 15 above yung nasulat. Pero ang importante siya pinakadaghan sulat. Anyways, in the Bible, Gentiles refer to people who were non-Israelites. So, non-Israelites were Gentiles. They did not belong to Jewish faith and were not bound by the law of Moses. In Romans 2:12-16, Paul acknowledges that people who are not of Jewish faith and do not have the law of Moses have an inner sense of what is right and wrong. The law is written in their hearts. They will be judged according to the law in the same manners that the Jews are judged and justified by the law of Moses. So, maskin pang katong walay Jewish faith, ana si Paul na nagyapon sila inner sense of what is right or what is wrong. So, CCC 1776 to 1782 picks up the inspiration from St. Paul when it teaches the deep within the heart of every person, conscience is a law inscribed by God. Its voice is ever calling us to do good and avoid evil. The functions of conscience includes the following. So number 1, at the right moment, it instructs the person to do good and avoid evil. So, ang person naga-feel og sense of guilt na nag-cheat sa exam. Pero, na-redirect siya sa iyahang conscience. Ang kani siya naga-remind sa tuwa na cheating is bad. Bad things are not good. Kanay na simple. More bitag ang conscience naga-serves as an inner na moral compass directing us towards actions that are considered morally upright and virtuous. So, number 2, it judges our particular choices by approving those that are good and objecting against those that are evil. So, conscience evaluates the moral quality of specific choices and actions. So, for example, when faced with the decision to speak up against injustice or remain silent, kita na naikonsensya. Kabalo man ta na ilang gibot sa iyo, ato siya lang i-badlong. Ato siya lang i-compel. Mag-stand ta to do what is right. Mag-stand ta for the right. Atong i-recognize na sa iyo pilahang gibuhat. Wait, balik-balik ka ni. Pero anyways, ako na ni-explain ganyan na. Pero anyways, kay naman dan Anyways, mo to ang number 2. So number 3, it also stands as the witness to the authority of the truth of the supreme good to which all people are drawn and makes them open to receive God's commandment. So, conscience bears witness to the inherent authority of ultimate goodness and truth, guiding individuals towards alignment with divine commandments and moral absolutes. So, despite social pressures to engage in unethical business practices for personal gain. So, for example, ang mga dako-dako sa usa ka company, instead of acting as a backer, na magpabakar-bakar sila na pasudlong ang ilang pamilya masking walay ambag, masking walay mambag sa company, ilahang disregard ang nepotism kay makonsensyahan sa sila na naay mas deserving na tao na magtrabaho, pero ang man nakatrabaho kay katurang mga tao na undeserving kayo just because of nepotism. So it stands as witness to the authority of the truth of the supreme good to which all people are drawn and makes them open to receive God's commandment. So, moto ang number 3. So, conscience then becomes a judgment of reason. So, check it na number 3 of moral conscience, whereby the person recognizes the moral quality of the concrete action he or she will do. Check it na number 5 sa moral conscience is doing or has done, and when it judges his or her action, he or she perceives and recognizes the command of the law. So, lagay number 5. In other words, it is not a judgment solely based on whimsical imagination or intuition. It is beneficial by virtue of its reasonableness that embraces the rule of the truth and the supreme good. So, reasonableness and embracement of the truth. So, conscience is described as reasonable because it adheres to the rule of truth rooted in the concept of the supreme good. It seeks to align human actions with moral truths, fostering integrity and virtue. So, awat sa kato akong giingay na a student refrains from cheating on an exam because mas gipili niya ang academic honesty. So how then do we attune ourselves to the invitations of conscience? So, cultivating faith and moral awareness. Atong i-cultivate atong faith. And we have moral awareness. That's how we attune ourselves to the invitations of conscience. Strengthening our faith and moral awareness through spiritual practices. Kaya nga naman, why do we need spiritual practices 30? Because if we do not engage in spiritual practices such as praying, going to church, reading the Bible, we wouldn't know what is actually wrong, such as sex before marriage. Sorry to those who are not devoted into Christianity, pero to those who believe in the Bible, ang giingon sa Bible, Multiplying is for the married, husband and wife. So, since nagbasa man tayo ng Bible, since we participate in spiritual practices, if ever magbuhat tag mali, makonsensyanta. Because not everything na ginabuhat sa world or mga ginabuhat sa unbelievers is insakto para sa tuwa. Kaya let's accept the fact na ginabuhat ang unbelievers na against sa Bible, na was nakabalo na mali. And they will not experience the feeling of conscience. Kaya wala man sila na nag-participate in spiritual activities. So kita na Christians, devoted Christians, na nagbasa ng Bible, nag-go to church, nag-ampo. Whenever we do something wrong, kabalo kita na, pala. What we did was wrong, makonsensyanta. So, to be worthy of the human dignity given to us by God, we are being prompted by our faith on the necessity of the uprightness of our moral conscience. So, acknowledging human dignity. So, if atong i-recognize and i-honor na to ang dignity na gibestow sa God, ay gibestow ni God sa ato maka-understand sa tana ang atong churches as human being and our churches as God's people is important. Kaya nga naman, since anak naman ta sa Ginoo, we should make sure na what we are doing is right and aligned pa sa spiritual path. Ako, to be honest, I have been weak in my spiritual walk with God lately. And agkakonsensyada, gid ko. No matter how much I try to change, kusog kayo ang influence sa world. And it scares me. Maunang, kailangan gid na to i-acknowledge ang gihatag sa to, ang gihatag sa Ginoo sa tuwa. If worthy pa ba? Worthy pa ba ko? Worthy ba ko sa human dignity na gihatag sa Ginoo sa ako? Marami tawag. Nawala na akong dignidad kay akong kinabuhi. It's full of sin. Agkaulo, nagi ko magampo sa Ginoo. Sayo na kay grabe yung tsang ko. Love kay ko sa Ginoo. Tapos, kinsaragid ko. Deserve ko ba ni? Yes. Kay gihatag mo na sa Ginoo sa to. We should accept the fact that no matter how much we sin, God is still loving. God loves us and will always accept us. We are being prompted by our faith on the necessity of the riches of our moral conscience. So, recognizing and honoring the inherent dignity bestowed upon us by God underscores the importance of upholding the integrity of our moral conscience. Understanding that our choices and actions reflect our dignity as human beings motivated us to listen to the voice of conscience and strive for moral excellence. So, dapat maminaw gid ta sa ato ang konsensya. We should not do the wrong things because it's against the will of God. So, lastly, we need to make a prudent judgment about concrete acts already done or yet to be done. So, mag-exercise ta sa atuang prudent judgment. Making prudent judgment about our past, present, or mga actions na ito pang buhaton in the future. Our future actions. This requires honest self-reflection, consideration of moral principles, and evaluation of the potential consequences of our choices. So, dapat ta mag-make og prudent judgments about sa ato ang actions. What's man yung prudent judgment? I'll explain. So, prudent judgment refers to the thoughtful and careful decision-making process based on sound reasoning, wisdom, and consideration of various factors. It involves weighing the potential consequences of action, evaluating available options, and selecting the most morally and practically appropriate course of actions. So, ang prudent judgment kay atong i-consider bitaw ang things na atong buhaton before doing it. Awat anang ingon bitaw sa atong mga parents or mga teachers sa unahan na think before saying it. Think before doing it. Dapat kita magunahuna if ang atong buhaton is for the better good ba or makapadaot ba So we need to make prudent judgments about what we will do. Kaya nga naman, magbuhat kay na abdi ni maging sakto. Kaya pagbuhat ni mo anak, na nasakitan. Wala. Konsensyahan nun ka. Because you did something wrong. That's why we should make prudent judgment. Kay, para makalikay ta sa pagka-konsensyahan. We won't feel pain. Kay, we did the right thing. It's what God wants, di ba? Mao nang kailangan itawag prudent judgment. So, consequently, a person has the right to act according to his or her conscience and in freedom in order to make a moral decision. So, nag-emphasize ang line about the fundamental human right to follow one's conscience in making moral decision. It asserts that individuals has the freedom to listen to their inner morals. So, ang isa ka tao na freedom na i-follow ang ilahang morals. Dili magpa-dala sa sala. Because they know that it's wrong. Nang giingon sa second line na, he or she can never be forced to do something against the directive of his or her own conscience. For to do so is a direct violation of the person's dignity. So, direct violation daw sa person's dignity if you force him or her na magbuhat ani ng butang, masking di siya ganahan. So, for example, inom ta. Pero dili siya ganahan. But you forced him or her to do so. That's violation to his or her dignity. Mo nang di na natubuhato na magpugusta. Napugso na to sila na magbuhat og dili maayo just for the sake of being cool or such. Because it is against their morals. So, how exactly does conscience make its judgment on our actions? In cases wherein we have done good deeds, surely our conscience approves of them by maintaining peace of mind and heart. In the case of committing evil deeds, it acts like a witness in the court of law who testifies to the truth about what he or she has seen and attests against the evil deed perpetrated. In a similar manner, our conscience primarily remains as the witness to the universal truth of the good and to the evil of the particular choice. So, atong conscience daw, nag-remain siya as a witness to the universal truth. Because if makonsensyaan ta, we seek to tell the truth. Because the truth shall set us free. Konsensyaan ka kay you have done something wrong na dili man na nimo makip sa imong heart. Someday, ma-expose lagi na ang imong gibuhat na mali. Pero, if imuha na siyang i-set free, mawalang konsensya, and clean ang imuhang heart o imuhang mind. Di na imuha na because imunang na ingon, imunang na buhat, then what's there to not sleep over for? Unsa ngano di pa mo ka matulog na imuna wala man ka na konsensyahan. So, to answer how does conscience make its judgment on our action? No, di na ito bagon. Joke lang. So, it invites exploration into the mechanisms and factors that influences moral decision making and ethical discernment. So, dapat insakto ang ato ang decision making. Kaya awat sa gingon Daniel. It acts like a witness in the court and law who testifies to the truth about what he or she has seen and attests against the evil deed perpetrated. So, mura siyag nag-testify against sa ato bitaw. Tungod kay na konsensyahan man ta atuhang gi right ang wrong. So, does this show that we are no different from the computer? What? What does that question mean? So, nag-raise siyang issue whether human conscience operates similarly to the program algorithm sa computer. So, invite siya sa reflection sa ato abitaw na dapat conscious ta sa ato ang kaugalingon. Moral agency and the consciousness, distinctiveness of human beings in comparison to artificial intelligence. Giingon dani sa book na the misconception comes from the wrong notion of freedom, which is doing what I want. Awat siya katong gingon gay na doing what I want, so I don't have to explain it that much. Remember that genuine freedom is geared towards the goodness, and our conscience precisely directs us towards this. Yes, of course, only the liberating grace of God can help us against this built-in tendency towards, what is this? Towards self-centered use of freedom, a very deep effect of original sin. So, no, we are no different from the computer. I have discussed for so long na nasayo pagid ko. Anyways, let's keep this rolling. Kamu na lang sabot. Anyway, furthermore, the truth is that the freedom of conscience carries with it corresponding obligation to respect the same freedom in others, as long as we remain in the company of others and not existing alone in a vacuum. That freedom stops when the freedom of others begin. As it is said, therefore our free thoughts, words, and deeds that guide us to genuine freedom. The moment we take ourselves away from the genuine freedom, we destroy ourselves in our selfishness. So, the moment we take away ourselves from genuine freedom. So, di ba ang pasabot sa genuine freedom kay the freedom to do what is good? The moment we step away from that, ato daw ma-destroy atong self sa human freedoms. We destroy ourselves in our selfishness. Tungod kay. So, how exactly does conscience make its judgment on our actions? So, approval of good deeds. When individuals perform good deeds aligned with moral principles, their conscience typically approves of this action. So, if insakto ang atong gibuhat bitaw na, insakto ang atong gibuhat na butang, dito makonsensyan because it's aligned with our moral actions. And conversely, when individuals commit evil deeds that violate moral standards, their conscience acts as a witness against these actions. So, Marshag, ikaw nag-testify against yourselves in the court. Tungod kay nakonsensyahan ka. Hala, kana si akong kaugalingon, nakasala na siya. Nga naman, because bigyan ang Bible na the truth shall set you free. And if you don't tell the truth, if di na may pagawas ang imong sala, makonsensyahan ba ka? Unless of course, imuha siya i-replace with good deeds. For example, nakasala ka, makonsensyahan ka. Unsaan man nimo para ma-erase ni mo yung konsensya? You say sorry. And dapat ma-apologize ka. So, remembrance of universal truth. Regardless of the specific choices made, conscience remains as a witness to the universal truth of good and evil. It serves as a reminder of the objective moral order and the internal principles of righteousness and virtue. So, mo siya ang universal truth of good and evil. Universal truth of good and evil man siya? Because, makonsensyahan man tayo in the first place, if wata kabalo, unsa ang good and evil. Right? Remember na aware sila Adam and Eve ato hang na nakasala sila. They were aware of their actions and nakonsensyahan sila. That's why nagtago sila. Before nito nila gibuhat, they were flawless. Wa sila nabuhat sayo. Pero since nakasala man sila, since kabalo man sila na they were disobedient to the heavenly call of Christ, nagtago sila, kaya nakonsensya na sila. So, universal truth of good and evil. So, makonek siya sa story and Adam and Eve. Right? Di ba? Makonek ko siya. So, hope and mercy siya ang atong conscience. Despite witnessing and acknowledging moral failings, conscience offers hope and mercy to individuals. It urges them to acknowledge their faults, seek forgiveness, and strive for redemption. Since naman kay konsensya, magasik gid ka for redemption, di ba? Di pwede, ako siguro no. Di gid ko magpasibot na nakasala ko na, di ko mag-seek for redemption. Dili na ko i-allow ang selves na akong kaugalingon na tungod lang ato na madown kog samot. Down na gid ko karon na madown pagid kog samot. So, tungod sa konsensya na promote siya of hope and mercy. Kay kabantay mo kanang mga tao na dili kabalo magpakumbaba. Di kabalo makonsensya. Na as if ilahang ginabuhat na mali kay cool kaayo. Saman, baba kay sila. Low kay sila. Pangit kay lang social life. Abi nag-cool kay sila pero sa tinuod lang, they suck. They're stupid. Sorry. Pero they're stupid. Abi nila, tsaday lang ipang buhat, but they're not. Kabalo ko na in the future, if wala man gid sila na konsensyahan sa ilang ipang buhat, they will fail as human beings. So, misunderstanding of freedom. A common misunderstanding arises when individuals perceive following the dictates of conscience as a limitations on their freedom. They may question how they can be truly free if they are bound by moral obligations. So, kabantay mo ng mga tao naging na, abi ako gitagaan ta sa ginong freedom, ngano bawal ko manibuhaton. God gave us the freedom to do good. Kana. Nagpakimatay na gani siya kay para i-cleanse atong sala. Ato pa hinong gamiton na tong freedom para magpakasala. It's ironic, right? That's the common misunderstanding of freedom. Then, comparison to computer programs. Does this show that we are no different from the computer? While conscience may appear analogous to computer programs and within a system, there are significant difference. Conscience operates within the realm of human consciousness, such as emotions, moral agency, and reflecting to the complexity and depth over human experience. Unlike programmed algorithms, conscience involves subjective interpretation. So, ang computer nakaprogram naman sila. Whereas kita, it's about our opinions, it's about our claim of value. Claim of value. It's about our claim of value and our experiences. Moral discernment and spiritual intuition, embodying the unique essence of human identity and dignity. So, grabe gid ka significant yung difference. Kaya nga naman, we feel emotions, unlike computers. So, before I end the discussion, ako sa ning basahon ang line or kani nakabutang sa box. And I quote, "Our conscience is the inner voice, ever calling us to love and do what is good and avoid evil. It is a law inscribed by God in our hearts that judges our choices, bears witness to the truth of the supreme good to which we are drawn, and leads us to welcome God's commandments." So thank you for listening. God bless and enjoy the quiz. If naman